Hello and welcome to this edition of Own the Journey, where we take the time to interview amazing business leaders from around the world and share their wisdom with you. And today we have the privilege of speaking with Randy Mays, who is the owner and CEO of Drive Leadership Group. Randy, thanks for being with us.
Oh, thanks, Tom. My pleasure.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. And so for those that don't know what Drive does and who you are, share just a little bit about your history.
Yeah, so, life's a journey.
Yeah, sure.
To figure it out as you go.
Uh-huh.
I've always had an intense interest in people, motivation, psychology. I got my undergrad in psychology with the idea that I always wanted to own my own business. Well, I had an opportunity to do that in 1986. I was able to buy a part of Springfield Janitor Supply, which was my first business. Mm-hmm. Owned and operated that for 17 years. Went back and got my MBA, Master's of Business Administration, along the way. But in the early 2000s, I sold that business and went into, actually started to work for a church. And what I did was lead their small groups. And so that became a very seminal experience for me because most of what I had been exposed to from a leadership standpoint and also from a church standpoint was someone standing in front talking at people. All of a sudden in these small groups, you had people talking to each other. And the power of that engagement and that collaboration was just like huge to me.
Oh, yeah.
So putting these pieces together, I ran this business for 17 years, was successful at it, but like any business, you have some ups and downs and some failures. I get involved with these small groups and I think about this human dynamic and what would happen if instead of talking at people, we talked with people. That became a very powerful influencer in where I went and what I did. So I got into executive coaching, which is very much a listening instead of a telling model.
Right.
Did that for about 6 years and then started my first organizational development group using a coach approach to get more things done faster.
I like it. And along the way, I'm sure you were exposed to the dynamics of many interesting types of people, but the personalities and how to interact with all of those as well. I mean, it's got to be a major challenge sometimes.
Oh, yeah, always. In people are the challenge, people are the opportunity. But I found that is truly the opportunity, is the people. How do you mine their unique genius, their extreme abilities, their passions, their interests? And if you can get that aligned, man, game over, you win.
Yeah.
If you don't get that aligned, I don't care how good your ideas are, I don't care how big your vision is, if it's your vision and not your team's vision, it's going to fail.
So what do you think? I mean, we've all dealt with personality conflicts and we've all dealt with challenges. And so when you have an executive team or a leadership group where you just know you've got those polar dynamics going on, how do you bring people together? How do you kind of work through that?
Well, it's an interesting thing about all humans everywhere is they are driven by self-worth and esteem.
Right.
Okay, so usually that squeaky wheel or that dominant player wants to be noticed. Okay, but so does the quiet person or two of these dominant people butt heads with each other.
Yeah.
The way to mitigate it, work with it, is to get everyone in the conversation. So I say this all the time. People rarely disagree. They just think they do. They're just not having the conversations. So when you get those people in a room together and you actually start to work on a shared purpose, which I talk about all the time, and you can actually establish your shared purpose, changes everything.
So when people aren't focused on one another, but are focused on the future of the organization, and then it's how do we become a good team, complement one another and get there?
Right. Absolutely, because one of the things I'm sure about, humans were never designed to be ruled and controlled by other people.
Right.
We got rid of the kings and queens in England, but we still have done that in our modern business systems. What if we had power with instead of power over? And that's what focusing on a shared purpose. Sometimes we call that mission, purpose, cause.
Yep.
But when an organization truly focuses on it, for profit, not for profit, nothing but good things happen.
Nice. I love the whole idea around that. We found in our organization that the mission and the purpose of leaders really is to serve and not to govern or to rule over, to use your words. Yeah, right. Absolutely. And when you have that servant leadership mentality, then everything changes, even in the executive room, because you're there to serve your team.
Right. I am convinced that no human wants to be a jerk. They just don't know any other way. And that's what they've been taught culturally in leadership. And you've been a student of leadership for years. That's how you did it.
Yeah.
You were large and in charge. The loudest person won.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
We think that works, but it doesn't.
Yeah, it just doesn't. So when you get aligned on the vision and the purpose, and you get the team to come together, how often should an executive team, a leadership team, how often should they come together to make sure that they're on the same page?
Okay, it certainly depends on the industry or the dynamics. The faster thing changes, the more you need to meet. But once a week, it is a nice natural cadence for a leadership team. They need to be in the loop. They need to be informed. They need to be problem solving together. So generally speaking, once a week for a leadership team.
Yeah, love that. Well, I know that you've studied, Vern Harnish's methodologies and EOS and all of the different things around how to run a leadership team. What would you say are the best practices that an organization needs to bring? So if you use scaling up, or if you use EOS, or if you just develop your own, what are some of the non-negotiables that you've got to have as a part of that team?
Well, EOS does a great job with talking about a meeting cadence. That would be one of the first things I would say, because you need a time and place to have those conversations. And one of the things business owners struggle with all the time is accountability. Well, I say accountability is a conversation. And if you have a time and a place to have that conversation, things naturally align and people get on board. I also think, along with a meeting cadence, is this whole idea of mission and purpose. If we don't have a shared purpose, if you don't have that, you're fighting. People are wired for purpose. Every human is wired for purpose. The question is, do we have the same purpose?
Right.
And without the conversation, we don't have that. Then probably the other thing I would say too that really sticks out to me across the course of the systems and things I've looked at is the ones that work well create engagement. So if we talked about the great game of business, what does it do well? It creates engagement. What does EOS do? It creates engagement. Now, in the case of EOS, wonderful system, doesn't go far enough. You don't get enough people engaged. It's still management focused rather than full organizationally focused. So that's that little nuance that I think if we noodled out and focused on that why, that idea that people want to be part of the conversation and they have something meaningful to contribute. In my history as a leader, it was all, how do you find the 2 to 5% of these great people that are going to lead your organization?
Yeah.
And what about the other 85% or 90%? Those are the people I want in the game.
Yeah.
Those are the people I want to get to the table.
You got to absolutely bring them to the table. Yeah, absolutely. Well, for people who don't know about your system, talk to us a little bit about what you've developed and how it compares to some of these other systems.
Yeah, so one of the things, I'm kind of a why guy, like why are we doing this? So like in the case of EOS, again, great system, but they only focus on the methodology and not the why. So I went to some base elements and said, hey, let's talk about 3 foundational elements. And the first of those, these are the foundational pieces, it's mutual respect. People are smart, capable, and motivated. I've worked with everything from janitors to food service to neuroscientists. They're all smart, capable, and motivated because they're human. If you can get up, put your clothes on, and get to work, you probably have something to contribute. So we've got the mutual respect piece. Then out of that, how do we create a shared purpose? Okay, and when you create that shared purpose, because people want to belong, that's one of the strongest human motivators is belonging. So if you can belong to something bigger than yourself, that becomes extremely powerful. So we've got shared purpose, we've got mutual respect, shared purpose, and it's all facilitated by meaningful dialogue. And dialogue is a two-way process. It's not a telling model, it's a conversational process.
Right.
So those 3 foundational pieces, then you put those into what I call the collaborative leadership model, which is collaboration, bring the relevant parties to the table. If you have a stake in the game or an interest in what's happening with a conversation or it affects you, you need a voice in that conversation. That creates that buy-in and ownership. You get them to lean in, okay, by inviting them intentionally as a leader to the conversation. Then you actually let them weigh in. Okay, we're going to actually let you help solve this problem. I don't have the answers. Let's co-create those together. So there's a neuroscience researcher named Judith Glaser, now passed, but she said the fastest way to build trust is to ask questions you don't have answers for. Genuinely do not have answers for, and then co-create solutions together. That principle is applied when we collaborate. Now, what I find, I've done hundreds of strategy sessions across the country. I was just in Colorado Springs Monday and Tuesday doing this with a new client out there, radio station of all things. And the number one thing these people say at the end of these sessions is, I had no idea how much we agreed on our challenges and opportunities and what we need to do next. They're just not having that conversation. So when they have that conversation, what happens? Collaboration, clarity. Okay, here it is.
Yeah, we're all on the same page.
We're all on the same, we're seeing exactly the same things.
Right.
We really want the same things by and large. Now, how do we get there? Once we're clear, then we ask for commitment. So it's collaboration, clarity, commitment. So often as business leaders and owners, we're asking for commitment before we have clarity. And that's, honestly, it's disrespectful to other humans.
Yeah.
I know more than you know. You need to do what I tell you.
Yeah.
Well, what if we had, again, that power with instead of power over? What if I got you fully in the conversation? People rarely disagree. They just think they do. We're not having the conversation. We have the conversation. We agree. Now, what are we committed to doing about that? And if you continue that cycle, it's collaboration, clarity, commitment, right back into collaboration with a cadence to talk about how things are going as you go along the way.
Yeah.
I say this all the time, that accountability is a conversation. You cannot hold somebody else accountable. But if you and I are dialoguing about a shared purpose, we hold each other accountable. And more importantly, I hold myself accountable to what I commit to.
Yeah, I love it. And I think one of the big lessons that I learned around that commitment is in those conversations when you say, can you commit to this? Or are you comfortable committing to this? And somebody's like, no. But sometimes they feel forced. So you have to have the psychological safety and the permission for them, or feel that they have to have the permission to say no. But one of the great questions is, well, what would we have to do for you to commit to 100%?
Yeah. Tell me.
Like what's broken? What have we not solved? What have we not dealt with? Or is it too much and too short of a period of time? Do we need to change the goal or whatever it may be so that you can be 100% committed? And once you get there through that collaboration, everybody's on the same page.
And they're working hard to get it done.
Yeah.
And then they're willing to go out, take some risks and try, because if they fail, they're not out, they're not ostracized, they're not judges. Let's go back to the table and collaborate.
Figure out what we need to do.
And get clarity and move forward.
Yeah, I love it.
Very powerful.
Yeah, good stuff. So in other than missing that collaboration piece, what would you say leadership teams or executive teams, what do they screw up most often other than just that failing to collaborate?
Yeah, so it really is, I'm going to go back one step back in the collaboration piece. It's this tacit understanding that as leaders we're supposed to tell people what to do. And it's a part of our culture. It's part of our leadership history. It's how we've been taught formally in my MBA program when I was in it. This was the standard. This is the way you do it. You set vision, you get people on board, you go out and sell it. You tell, sell, and yell until they get on board. Well, that doesn't do any good, because a man convinced against his own will still remains unconvinced. So very much that process that you talked about, if you'll engage them in that way, get agreement, clarity and agreement about what to do, and then go do it, it changes everything. I think the other thing, the subtle thing, is, again, because of culture and society, the boss is way more intimidating than the boss realizes he is. So you have to be very intentional about bringing people into the conversation. You have to be very intentional about going low and doing a lot more listening than you do talking. Because the whole premise or assumption is you're the boss, you're supposed to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
Most bosses aren't aware of how powerful that is.
Yeah. I think that's sage advice. I saw a video the other day of Simon Sinek. He said one of the hardest things for a leader to do, but one of the most important things for a leader to do in a meeting is to be the last one that makes a comment about anything. So here's the problem, and then shut up and let everybody else discuss it before you pipe in.
And all the research shows, scientific research where we've done lab studies on this, is when the most powerful person, the leader, speaks up first, everybody gets in line. The research all shows that. I mean, they can be dead wrong, and if they speak first, everybody's agreeing with them. So you've got to intentionally find ways to circumvent that.
Okay. Well, shifting just a little bit, if somebody wants to get into the coaching business, I mean, it's a hard business. There's lots of people purporting to do it online. Who knows? Some I'm sure are great, and I would venture to guess some are not so good. How do you get in the game? I mean, what are the first steps?
That's a great question. And there's absolutely no regulation in the coaching field. So anybody can call themselves a coach under any auspices, which is okay by me too. I'm all about freedom of speech. But the truth is there's no standards. Like a CPA or a lawyer, they all have standards that they have to meet. Not so in the coaching world or consulting world. The other thing that I think people miss is that generally speaking, consultants are viewed negatively by the general population. They charge too much and they don't do enough. Okay? So when someone wants to get into consulting, they're like, oh, everybody's going to love me because I'm a consultant. No, everybody's going to be very suspicious of you. You are now a used car salesperson. But the key to getting into coaching or consulting, either one of those, is to have something of real value to be able to bring to the table. And you mentioned early servant leadership. How do you serve that client?
Right.
And if you're really focused on serving them with subject matter expertise that they don't have, and partnering with them, not telling them what to do, but coming alongside and partnering with them, that's your best path forward, because people actually want that. My first real business, this distribution business I had, it was basically a sales business. And people would always say, you know, I hate to be sold. Well, I've come to the point where I understand I'd love to be sold by a competent, capable professional that's looking out for my best interest.
Yeah, absolutely.
In your space, I need you and your expertise in IT.
Yeah.
I don't have it and I don't want to have it.
Right.
So people need your skills. They need your ability if you want to be a consultant and provide real value to them. They need that, but it's a complementing piece. It's not the single focus.
I think that's really wise. And I think what you said is that I mean, at the end of the day, people do like to be sold if it's from a competent person who's looking out for their best interests, bringing real value to the table. And I think one of the challenges with a lot of organizations or consultants is they speak in theory and not like practical, useful, day-to-day operational tactics.
Right. It's all theory. It's like going to a class and not having an application. So that's one of the things in our model, this approach, our drive leadership system that we do, is I've given up on educating and teaching people from the front of the row. What we focus on is walking us alongside leaders and their people on an ongoing basis so you can create real sustainable change. Knowledge does not change people. What changes people is when they can get it all over them and there's a transformation inside of them. There's the insight, the awareness, the desire to change intrinsically rather than extrinsically. That's what creates real change.
So how do you facilitate that? How do you have a dialogue? I mean, you say knowledge doesn't change people. I think that's an interesting concept. I've never heard that. How do you engage somebody in a conversation where the knowledge, I would say, maybe turns into wisdom instead of just raw knowledge?
Right. Oh, great question. So I want to start contextually. Think about a library full of books.
Yeah.
More importantly, think about the internet and Google. Everything you ever wanted to know is at your fingertips.
Right.
Everything that we know as humanity, it's all handled by Google for us. It's sortable. You can search it. Okay, think about that.
Okay.
Now, so all that information now becomes irrelevant because it's overload. So again, let's go back to that telling model, the listening model instead of the telling model. So if I come and say, Tom, what do you need to be successful here? And it's safe, okay? You're going to tell me I don't have to guess anymore because I can't read your mind.
Right.
That approach, that go low, engage them, tap into what's inside of them because they want to contribute. I say this all the time, and I think we could probably use this language knowing them around you. Nobody comes to work and wants to suck.
Yeah.
They just don't.
Yeah.
Humans do not want to suck.
Right.
So if you give them the opportunity to be a rock star in their space,
yes,
and everyone's a rock star, it's in there. Maybe not in the way I do it or the way you do it, but it's in there in the way they would do it. So that's why that coach approach is so powerful because you're not going in with assumptions. You're suspending judgment. You're pulling it out of them and saying, how would you like to contribute to our shared purpose?
Okay, so let's unpack that just a little bit further, because the analogy that came to mind for me when you were talking about that is we all have the knowledge that we need to exercise and eat well every single day, but that doesn't necessarily change our behavior. We still drive through McDonald's and get a quarter pounder with cheese and all the stuff. It's not good for us. So we have the knowledge. So how when you have somebody or a situation like that, how do we instead of just, kind of the theory, what is it that actually, what have you seen over the years that has been the trigger that actually changes the behaviors?
Yeah, so humans intrinsically want more. We're wired for that, and we're wired for purpose. So when I come to you and I say, Tom, how would you like to make a contribution here? I'm really open. It changes the entire dynamic. Instead of me preaching to you about not eating Big Macs, you'll say, Randy, I got this gut, okay? And I've really been wanting to work. Well, Tom, any thoughts on what you'd like to do with that? Okay. Oh, well, maybe I should work out, or maybe I should eat better. What's worked for you? What hasn't worked for you? I'm not giving you advice. I'm facilitating a meaningful conversation with you about how you can best move forward. Now, look, when we're talking about kids and maybe even college students, they need a portfolio of information and knowledge to start to work with. But when you get past 30 or 35 or 40, you know everything you need to know. You just don't know you know. And it's how you get your arms wrapped around it in a meaningful way. And you do that from your perspective, not mine, because you have your own perspective. And it's totally valid. You tell me how you want to move forward and fix this, and I'm going to come alongside you and support you in that process. Think how empowering that is for humans.
Yeah.
One of the things business owners often say, well, if you invest in people like that, what if they take another job? So what?
Yeah.
There are now advocates for you out there in the market, and you have a vortex. People want to be a part of that kind of environment. You become very attractive for new potential employees.
Yeah. So walk me through a situation when somebody's opinion or thoughts really are just wrong. I mean, I've been wrong. I've had a strong opinion about something, and it's been like, wrong. How do you walk somebody through a situation like that when you know as a leader that they're headed for a train wreck? It's like, is it a more questions? Is it, would you consider an alternative answer, or what if that wasn't the truth? How would you engage in that dialogue?
I love those kind of probing questions. Now, let me distinguish between something. People say the craziest things in one-on-one conversations. They just do. They do not do that in a public conversation. So if you leverage, and let's go back to EOS, where you have the level 10 meeting, that's what I call a public conversation.
Sure.
And so when you vet business issues, we're not talking about personal development, we're talking about business issues inside a public conversation, and people buy in through that process, through that co-creative process, there's a commitment and an alignment that naturally happens. They don't say those crazy things that they may say one-on-one. Now, that solves the problem, big picture, larger meetings and organizational direction-wise, okay? Individually, one-on-one, if people really, and this is one of the things that when I started doing executive coaching, and I worked with some really prominent people, I pretty quickly came to the conclusion that the problem isn't that people think too highly of themselves. They don't think highly enough of themselves.
Insecurity, like imposter syndrome?
Absolutely. This insecurity, this doubt, this uncertainty. You can't touch me. No. If you'll provide that space where they can really be psychologically safe, you'll connect with them as a human, even if it means you're not a good fit for my organization, those people will bring what they need to the table and recognize, hey, Tom, I'm trying to be a computer programmer. This just isn't what I need to do or I'm passionate about. Help me find another place in your organization. And you're going to come alongside them and say, let me help you find a place with one of my business friends, because you really are great at customer service, and I don't have a customer service position right now. Let me plug you in over here.
Yeah.
Think about the dynamics, the caring, empathetic nature that creates internally and externally for your organization. People, if they feel psychologically safe, will own up and bring their shortcomings to the table because they want to fix them. Nobody wants to suck.
Yeah, I love that. Very good. Okay, so another scenario I want to throw at you that you made me think of. What if you have that one toxic person on a leadership team, and you had the one-on-one coaching, you've tried to get them there, but they're just poison. What would you recommend to a leadership team in trying to deal with a situation like that?
Yeah, so we always start with the coach approach. I mean, that's what I advocate.
Sure.
We try to work through it. Hey, if it's not working, you as a leader have to take action. You have to have that watershed conversation with an employee and say, hey, look, here's the issues. Here's what's going on. Fix it. It's up to you to fix it. I'm not going to fix it for you. And again, it's about this. It's empowering them, letting them be responsible for themselves. Here's what I need fixed. Do we need to talk about you moving on? Those are very important conversations to have. And the deal is, so often I see owners, they resist. Oh, we've got the toxic employee. We don't do anything with them. We don't do anything with them.
Yeah.
Especially if they're a high performer. The people, when you actually pull the trigger, let them go, walk them out the door, your staff is going, what took you so long?
Oh, I know, all the time.
Because the collateral damage is way greater than their contribution. And I don't care how much of a superstar they are.
So what I've heard through our dialogue is everything starts with respect and honor with the individual, with really good questions, but then shifting that accountability in the conversation to that individual. So if they're in the wrong spot or they're treating people poorly or handling situations poorly, it's always their responsibility to fix it. But you are comfortable and should put guardrails in situations where you've got that kind of an individual in the environment that's pulling the company down.
It's really the only healthy way to have mutual respect for that person and all your other team members too. You just can't let it be a free-for-all.
Yeah.
Here's the other principle that I've noticed along the way. A lot of these I kind of go along,
Yeah.
So if one person is unhappy, you've got a toxic employee, they're just as unhappy as everyone else that they're spraying the toxicity with. We just haven't had the conversation.
Yeah.
Haven't talked about it. And that's universally the case with adults. In an adult relationship, you don't have one unhappy party and one happy party. It could happen. There could be an anomaly. But by and large,
Right.
if you're unhappy with them, if they're toxic or their performance is low, that's mutually...
They don't feel successful
They
either.
don't feel successful either.
And they don't want to suck.
Yeah, they don't want to stop. So how do you as a gracious leader let them off the hook?
Right.
Help them have dignity and respect by moving on to something that they really can be a rock star or a place where they're really happy.
Yeah.
That's a gift.
That is a gift. That's so often. So when we talk about getting the teams aligned, that shared purpose has become such an important part of your practice that you have actually made it one of your core values.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's the whole game basically. It's the barometer. If again, people are wired for purpose. Every human's wired for purpose. The question is, do we have the same purpose? Is it in alignment? How do we know? Conversationally through dialogue.
Right.
Full dialogue. If you and I talk back and forth, we'll go, well, here's what I really said. What do you mean by that? Tell me more about that. We'll come to an agreement. I go, man, we are connected. Humans need each other.
Yes.
The idea of the self-made man that doesn't need anybody, that's bogus.
Yeah.
We all need help. We all need, and the humans, we need each other. So making that deep, meaningful connection with that other human who wants exactly the same thing that you do is you. So let me give you another illustration or analogy around shared purpose. So north of town here's I-44. I would call that a common purpose. You and I both enjoy I-44. If I want to go to St. Louis or to Tulsa, I'm going to jump on I-44. It's going to get me there quicker. I call that a common purpose. Most businesses are built on common purpose. I'm a business owner that has a vision. I want you to help me achieve my vision. Why don't I pay you? Because you need food and rent money. I'm going to pay you. Common purpose. They actually align. It's actually the classic win-win, okay?
Right.
But there's something way beyond that we're not tapping into as business owners and leaders, and that's this shared purpose. Now, shared purpose, my wife and I's house over there that we live in, that's a shared purpose. Money. If you come there and create havoc, you're going to pay for it.
Right.
I will die on that hill to protect that house.
Sure.
That's the difference between a shared purpose and a common purpose. Most businesses are built on common purpose. That's the flaw. That's the opportunity. If you actually create shared purpose, they'll fight for the company's mission, cause, and issues as well as you will, or more.
Or more. Yeah, we've had to back employees off because they want to burn themselves out, and that can become a really big challenge as well.
If you really create shared purpose and you have a way to process a meeting cadence and ongoing conversation around it, game over, you win.
Yeah.
You win, employees win, your customers win, the community wins.
Yeah, it's good for everyone.
It's good for everybody.
I love it. So when in the coaching business do you think it's appropriate for somebody who's working along to bring in additional support and staff, and how do you make sure that they're aligned and are going to handle your clients and the people that you support in the same way that you want? Talk about shared purpose.
Yeah.
Coaching styles are pretty tough. How do you decide when to pull the trigger?
So we go right back, and you're talking about my business. If I was in an employee, so we go right back to the same principles. I eat my own cooking.
Yeah.
Mutual respect. I enjoy individuality and different skill sets and ability sets. We don't all have the same, and that's a good thing, not a bad thing. I want to honor that. As long as there's some humility in that person where they can recognize things they don't do well,
sure,
we'll work wonderfully well together as a team because we'll complement each other. So we're going to have mutual respect. We're going to develop a shared purpose. What do we really want to do? So our mission statement, or our simplified vision statement for the work we do with clients, is we walk alongside, and it's a really important piece of that. It's not just teach or tell or give you a plan. We walk alongside relationally with leaders and their people to develop a shared purpose. That's our whole purpose.
That's awesome.
Purpose.
I love it.
And then to build a collaborative culture that drives better results. Because I, like you, am achievement oriented. I want to get more done. The odd thing that I found, or the interesting thing that I found, is so many of the methodologies that we've used in leadership and management actually reduce our results rather than improve them.
Wow.
So when you get a group of people that have clear direction, okay, they know where they're going, they know what needs to be done, and we've co-created that together and agreed on that, at least to some extent. We're seamlessly communicating, dynamically flowing, and we've engaged and motivated that team. Unstoppable.
Yeah.
That team's going to win, or they're going to adjust to a game they can win.
I think I love the approach of recognizing the different skills of the different people coming to the table and letting them blossom and do their own thing within the framework that you've shared around the shared vision.
Yeah. Mediocrity in today's market, mediocrity will not create success for you.
No.
You have to have exceptional results. And the only way to do that is to tap into that unique genius or unique ability of every individual. Because when they're functioning in that area, the product isn't twice as good or 4 times as good. It's 10 or 20 or 100 times better.
So you're really bringing out that special sauce. Yeah.
That special sauce that's distinctive in every aspect of your business and your organization.
Yeah, very good. Well, when we end up with individual in the different businesses, I kind of describe them as people puzzles and challenges, and we've all had them. In your world, when you're trying to bring support staff and grow a coaching business for those that want to aspire to do that, how do you know? I mean, is it just revenue? Is it capacity? Is it scale? I mean, how do you scale a coaching business to be successful over time?
Well,
I think it's tough.
Yeah, it really is, because a lot of what we do is a support in the care part. I just want to be upfront about that, but that's what people need most, is that psychological safety, that support. They've got to figure out how to do it. So likewise, internally, when we're looking at people, but it was an interesting piece of advice that I got when I was a young man running my distribution business. Old sage of a CPA, he said, "Randy, in this life, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you earn." And that really stood out to me, and I understood that there's a value formula, and if you're producing real value, you can get paid for it. If you can't get paid for it, you're not producing real value. That really becomes a litmus test on whether or not you're producing actual value. It may be value from my perspective, but is it value from your team members' perspective and your customers' perspective? So if you can kind of keep that in mind and earn it as opposed to what you deserve, so everybody comes from different sides of the streets, of course, and I came from that giving side where I want to do more. There's a lot of things you can do that really aren't valuable to your customers. So you have to, as a leader, as an organization, be able to determine what those are. And a real indicator of that is will people pay for it?
I think that's really wise. I think that that one of the things that you said is something that we have to constantly reinforce, and that is understanding what other people see as valuable, not what you think is valuable. Because so often we are puking information or throwing information or providing services, and they're like, I don't really care about this.
They don't.
Yeah.
That's not real help to me. Again, that's from that side of the street where my knowledge, my understanding is preeminent. I understand the world, and everyone understands it just like I do. No, they don't.
No.
Everyone has a unique and different perspective that honestly is valid. And the only way to find that out is through questions. By listening. So you can't do it by telling. You got to do it by listening. And when you find out what it is, can I really help you? No. I don't.
That's okay.
It's okay. But now we don't.
Yeah.
As opposed to a ruse or a game or
Positioning, sales games. Yeah.
it's about real value. And the only reason someone won't do business with you if you actually provide real value is they don't trust you. Because if you provide real value, I want you at the table. I want you selling me, looking out for my best interest as a professional.
Yeah, my old business partner said that no sale happens until there is a transition of trust. And I think that's exactly right.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
So we're really about building healthy organizational dynamics, which is trust.
Yeah, that's it. Well, Randy, as we wrap up, do you have any other advice that you've received throughout your life that you'd like to share? Some of the best advice. You just shared some. Have you got any other advice you'd like to share with us?
I think in this moment in time, I go back to that importance of each individual and their own perspective, each individual and their unique giftings and talents, and the insight or the reality that they want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. So us as leaders, what we become is a catalyst to getting them in the game, to engage that uniqueness and that gifting in a way that's productive, that provides real value. Boom, that's great leadership.
Good. Well, on that note, I want to ask you one more question. I think the way that you oftentimes bring that out is through one-on-one dialogues and those individual conversations. What have you seen is a healthy and then an unhealthy ratio for a leader to have in terms of direct reports? I mean, I've seen people talk to somebody last night has 24 direct reports. I mean, it's impossible to get that kind of engagement going in that environment. What's the right number?
Well, I know both from practice and research that the ideal small group size is 4 to 7 people.
Okay.
And you're working a small group, lead a team.
Yeah.
You get beyond 7 and it incrementally and it exponentially falls off your effectiveness up to that 4. You have capacity that you can share. So, every situation's different.
Sure.
But 4 to 7 direct reports are about the window you want.
About the window. Okay. Well, we'll wrap it up there, Randy. I want to raise my glass to you and say congratulations and cheers for owning your journey. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.